June 3, 1942. 9:04 p.m. Mid-Pacific Ocean. The PBY Catalina is flying low. Its engines are steady, tired hum over black water. The Pacific at night has a way of swallowing everything, horizon, stars, even sound, until the airplane feels like the only object in the universe. Ensign Jack Reed is hunched over the radarscope, eyes burning from hours of staring at green noise. Most of the time, it's nothing. Static. Weather. The ocean's empty promise. Then the blip appears. Reed leans closer. He adjusts the gain. The blip doesn't vanish. It grows. Another appears beside it. Then another. Then several more, arranged in a pattern that makes his stomach tighten. This isn't a lone ship. This is a formation. He keys the MIC. His voice is clipped, professional, trying not to sound like a man who just saw a ghost. Enemy bearing 320. Distance approximately 700 miles. Multiple large contacts. Probable carriers with escorts. That message travels faster than any torpedo. It jumps frequencies, crosses desks, gets scribbled on notepads, relayed to officers who have been waiting for it like a verdict. It reaches Pearl Harbor. It reaches the 3 American carriers hiding in the empty ocean northeast of Midway. It reaches Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, who has been gambling with the last ships America has left in the Pacific. And it changes everything. For 6 months, the Imperial Japanese Navy has moved like a machine. Pearl Harbor, December 7th. Then Hong Kong. Then Singapore. Then the Philippines. Wake Island, Guam, the Dutch East Indies. British power in the Far East shattered. American power burning. Every Allied map of the Pacific is being redrawn in ink and blood. The Japanese carrier force, the Kido Butai, is the sharp edge of that machine. Veteran pilots. Well-trained deck crews. Fast carriers. Perfectly drilled formations. A doctrine built around striking first and striking hard. The same force that humiliated the United States at Pearl Harbor now seems untouchable. The United States Navy is still breathing, but barely. It has lost ships. It has lost men. It has lost confidence. It has learned, painfully, that battleships aren't the kings of the sea anymore. Carriers are. And Japan has more of them, with better pilots. Midway is where Japan plans to end the argument. Midway Atoll is a speck of coral and sand, 1,300 miles northwest of Hawaii. No civilians. No glamour. Just an airfield, gun emplacements, and a few thousand servicemen living inside sandbags and sweat and salt. It exists for one reason. It's an unsinkable aircraft carrier parked at the edge of the American defensive perimeter. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto wants it gone. He wants Midway taken, its runways smashed, its planes destroyed. But that's not the real prize. The real prize is the U.S. carrier fleet. Yamamoto wants to lure those carriers out, trap them, and kill them in one decisive battle. Finish the war before American industry can wake up and turn the Pacific into a factory line. His plan is huge, too huge. Multiple task forces. A diversion toward the Aleutians. A carrier strike force under Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo to hit Midway. Battleships and heavy cruisers spread across hundreds of miles of ocean. Submarines picketing likely approach routes. It's a net cast wide. It's also a plan that depends on secrecy. And secrecy is exactly what Japan no longer has. In Hawaii, in a basement filled with cigarette smoke and exhausted men, American codebreakers have been working Japan's naval cipher. They have pieces. Enough pieces. They know AF is Midway. They know the timing window. They know a major operation is coming. Nimitz tells his staff something that sounds like madness. We are going to meet them there. He sends his carriers, Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown, north to a patch of empty ocean northeast of Midway. Yorktown is the gamble inside the gamble. She's been damaged at the Battle of the Coral Sea, hit hard enough that she should be out of action for months. Instead, repair crews in Pearl Harbor work like men trying to outrun history. They patch her flight deck, weld plates, replace cables, push her back to sea in 3 days. Not perfect. Not pretty. But afloat. Nimitz doesn't need perfection. He needs presence. So the carriers steam north and wait. June 3rd, the Catalina report confirms what everyone already feels in their bones. The Japanese are coming. The trap is set. And both sides believe the other one is walking into it. June 4th, 1942. 4:30 a.m. Midway time. On the Japanese carriers, the day begins with ritual precision. Deck lights glow. Crewmen move with practice speed, dragging hoses, checking fuel lines, locking bombs into place. Pilots climb into cockpits and adjust straps and goggles and oxygen masks. They look calm because calm is part of the uniform. Nagumo's carriers turn into the wind. At 4:30 a.m., the first wave launches. 108 aircraft rise into the dawn: fighters, dive bombers, level bombers. Their target is Midway Island. The goal is simple: crush its air power, crater its runways, silence its guns, then prepare the way for invasion. Far away, on Midway, radar operators pick them up. The screen fills with inbound blips. Massive formation. 90 miles. Sirens begin to wail across the atoll. Men tumble out of bunks. Anti-aircraft crews sprint to their positions. Pilots run for whatever aircraft can still fly. Midway isn't a fleet. It's a fistful of planes and a stubborn refusal to die. At 6:20 a.m., the Japanese strike hits. Bombs slam into runways. Hangars erupt. Fuel storage burns. The island shakes like it's being broken apart. Sand and coral dust fill the air. Men are thrown to the ground. Metal screams. Japanese pilots fly low and precise. They are professionals, and they are good at their jobs. But Midway doesn't collapse. Even while explosions still ripple across the airfield, American aircraft start taking off, some burning, some barely functional, some so obsolete they feel like museum pieces. Torpedo planes, B-26 bombers, marine dive bombers, fighters that can barely climb fast enough to catch anything. They launch anyway. They go looking for the Japanese carriers, and they attack in scattered waves. It's not coordinated. It's not elegant. It's a series of near-suicidal lunges. They get cut apart. Japanese Zero fighters tear through them. Anti-aircraft fire rips wings off planes. Bombs miss. Torpedoes run deep or detonate early or simply fail. American aircraft hit the ocean and vanish, leaving only smoke and oil and men who will never be found. But every one of those attacks forces the Japanese carriers to maneuver, to turn hard, to scatter formation, to delay the launch of a second strike, to keep their decks crowded with aircraft being refueled and rearmed. Nagumo's problem is timing. Midway isn't dead yet. Its airfield is damaged, but not destroyed. The first wave reports heavy resistance. They recommend a second strike. Nagumo has aircraft on deck already, planes armed with torpedoes and armor-piercing bombs meant for ships, because Nagumo is also watching for American carriers. He doesn't want to be caught with the wrong weapons loaded. He orders his reserve strike to be rearmed for land attack. Bombs come off. Torpedoes get rolled away. New bombs get brought up. Fuel lines run. Deck crews sweat. The flight decks become crowded, cluttered, dangerous. Then reports come in. American ships may be nearby. Now Nagumo reverses himself. He orders the planes to be rearmed again, back to anti-ship weapons. It's chaos disguised as procedure. Minutes slip away. Fuel vapors hang in the air. Ordnance piles up. Aircraft are jammed wingtip to wingtip. And while the Japanese carriers are busy rearming, the American carriers are sending their own aircraft into the sky. June 4th, 1942. 7 a.m. 8:00 a.m. Enterprise and Hornet launch. Yorktown follows. Torpedo squadrons and dive bomber squadrons lift off and form up, heading toward a target that might not even be there. They fly into empty ocean, scanning for specks on the horizon. Some never find anything. Some turn back. Some run out of fuel and ditch into the sea. But the ones who do find the Japanese fleet will arrive in fragments, one squadron at a time, like blows thrown without a plan. And those blows, even when they miss, will set up the kill. June 4th, 1942. 9:20 a.m. Torpedo squadrons arrive first. They come in low, slow, almost touching the waves. The torpedo planes are old and underpowered, designed for a navy that assumed it would have air superiority when it needed it. They don't. Not today. Without fighter escort, they are meat. Japanese Zeros drop on them like hawks. Anti-aircraft guns open up. Water around the planes erupts into white fountains as shells hit. Planes start falling almost immediately. Torpedo Squadron 8 from Hornet goes in alone. 15 planes. One by one, they are shot down. Pilots keep flying straight, because to turn away is to admit the truth. They hold course under impossible fire, because the torpedo run requires it. They die anyway. Only one man, Ensign George Gay, survives, floating in the water, watching the battle from the surface of the ocean like a ghost nobody can see. Enterprise and Yorktown's torpedo squadrons suffer the same fate. They are chewed apart. They don't sink a carrier. But they do something else. They drag the Japanese combat air patrol down to low altitude. They force the carriers to twist and turn violently to dodge torpedoes. They pull attention, guns, fighters, everything, down toward the sea. And they leave the high sky above the Japanese fleet nearly empty. That empty sky is where the dive bombers are coming from. June 4th, 1942. 10:20 a.m. The counteroffensive begins. Lieutenant Commander Wade McCluskey is almost out of fuel. He leads Enterprise's dive bombers. He should have found the Japanese carriers hours ago. He hasn't. His men are tense, their engines gulping the last of their fuel. The ocean below is endless and indifferent. He has a choice: turn back and maybe save the squadron, or keep searching and risk losing everyone. Then he sees it. A single Japanese destroyer, Arashi, racing north at full speed, throwing up a white wake like a knife cut in the sea. That's not a patrol pattern. That's a ship trying to catch up. McCluskey makes the decision that wins the battle. He follows the destroyer's wake. Minutes later, the Japanese fleet appears below him. 4 carriers, escorts in a protective ring, aircraft still cluttering the decks. The timing is perfect in the most terrifying way. The Japanese carriers have just recovered aircraft from the Midway strike. Their hangar decks are full. Their flight decks are crowded. Fuel and bombs and torpedoes are everywhere. They are in the middle of rearming. They are loaded like gasoline-soaked tinder. McCluskey tips his Dauntless into a dive. The world becomes wind and vibration and a screaming descent. Pilots stare straight down at carriers growing larger and larger, anti-aircraft fire reaching up like black flowers blooming in the sky. At almost the same moment, Yorktown's dive bombers arrive from another direction. The Japanese look up too late. 10:22 a.m. bombs fall. Kaga is hit. Then hit again. Fires rip across her deck. Planes detonate in chain reactions. The carrier becomes a furnace. Soryu takes bombs that punch into her hangar deck. Fuel ignites. Explosions blow her insides out. Akagi, flagship, takes a single bomb, but it's the bomb that matters. It hits near the center, ignites fuel lines and armed aircraft. Fire spreads faster than men can fight it. Within minutes, the carrier is doomed. In less than 5 minutes, 3 Japanese fleet carriers are mortally wounded. 3 of the 6 carriers that attacked Pearl Harbor are dying. The air above them is filled with smoke, diving planes, falling planes, burning planes. The sea becomes a patchwork of oil slicks and wreckage and men in the water. Hiryu, the 4th carrier, is still intact. She launches 2 counterstrikes. The first hits Yorktown, leaving her dead in the water. Repair crews fight fires, patch holes, get her moving again, briefly. The second strike finds her again and finishes the job. For a moment, it looks like Japan might still claw back a draw. Then, late in the afternoon, American dive bombers find Hiryu. They fall on her like judgment. Bombs smash her deck. Fires erupt. Aircraft burn. The carrier slows. Stops. Lists. Hiryu will burn through the night and be abandoned. By dusk on June 4th, 1942, all 4 Japanese fleet carriers are either sinking or doomed. The battle has turned. The war has turned with it. June 5th to 6th, 1942. The balance shifts. The fighting doesn't end cleanly. Battles rarely do. Japanese forces retreat westward, trying to salvage survivors, trying to regroup, trying to avoid being finished off by submarines and aircraft. Yamamoto still has battleships, still has cruisers, still has power. But he has lost the thing that matters most, the carrier strike force that gave Japan the initiative. American planes continue hunting. On June 5th, U.S. aircraft sink the heavy cruiser Mikuma and damage Mogami. More Japanese sailors die in the water, surrounded by oil and debris, as the fleet slips away into the west. On June 6th, the Japanese scuttle wrecks and pull back. They cannot risk what remains. The cost is staggering. Japan loses 4 fleet carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu. Over 300 aircraft. Thousands of sailors. But the worst loss isn't steel or numbers. It's experience. Japan's elite naval aviators, men trained over years, veterans of China and Pearl Harbor, die with their ships or in the air above them. A carrier can be replaced eventually. A pilot like that cannot. Training takes time Japan doesn't have. The United States loses Yorktown, a destroyer, aircraft, men. It's painful. But American industry is waking up. New carriers are already being built. New pilots are already in training pipelines. The United States can absorb losses and keep growing stronger. Japan cannot. That is what strategic initiative really means. It's not just who wins a battle. It's who gets to decide where the next battle happens. Before Midway, Japan chose the fights. The US reacted. After Midway, Japan is forced to react. Midway becomes the hinge. Not because it ends the war. It doesn't. The war will grind on for 3 more years, across islands and jungles and reefs, through Guadalcanal, Tarawa, the Marianas, Letta Gulf, Iwo Jima, Okinawa. But Midway is the moment the momentum changes direction. It happens fast. June 4th, 1942. 10:20 a.m. That is the moment the counteroffensive begins, when American dive bombers find the Japanese carriers and commit to the dive. 10:22 a.m. That is the moment the balance flips, when bombs hit and 3 carriers ignite almost at once. The Japanese plan was elegant. Over-engineered. Too clever. It relied on perfect timing, perfect secrecy, perfect coordination across a vast ocean. The American plan was desperate. Risky. Built on imperfect intelligence, narrow margins, and a willingness to bet everything. Desperation wins. 4 carriers burn. The initiative burns with them. And from that point on, the Imperial Japanese Navy is no longer hunting. It's running. It will still fight fiercely. It will still kill thousands. It will still win battles, sometimes. But the direction of the war has changed. Midway proves something that will define the rest of the Pacific War. Japan can be hit. Japan can be hurt. Japan can lose. The tide doesn't turn with speeches or flags or slogans. It turns with fuel running low, pilots sweating inside cockpits, commanders making decisions on partial information, and a few minutes of violence so concentrated it reshapes the world. A small atoll. A few squadrons of battered planes. A handful of choices made under impossible pressure. And the most powerful naval strike force on Earth loses the war it thought it had already won.